Hi everybody, are you okay guys? This is a lecture about introductory notions of Brazilian constitutional regarding the celebration of World Constitution Day. Let's talk about introductory notions about the Brazilian Constitution of 1988. Well, firstly, we should say about legal concept of constitution. The Constitution is the basic rule of the entire legal system. So the Constitution is the main rule of the entire legal system. It is therefore the assumption of validity of all infra-constitutional laws. It's the validity of all infra-constitutional laws. That is, for a law to be valid, it must be compatible with the Constitution. So now let's us now deal with the Brazilian Constitution of 1988. Let's go, people. Brazilian Constitution of Brazil is promulgated, that is democratic, prepared by the representatives of the people, which differs from the one granted, such as the 1937 Charter imposed by the authorities. So our constitutional of 1880 is democratic. It's also written. It's also written because it's a solemn document. It's also formal. Our constitutional is formal because in addition to having constitutional matters such as the separation of powers and rights and the fundamental material guarantees, and besides that, it has other matters. As an example, the Article 242, where it's the provision of Pedro II School at Rio de Janeiro, Colégio Pedro II, Pedro II School at Rio de Janeiro. So, and our constitution is also analytical, since it is an extensive, long-winded, repetitive constitution. It's also ruling. It's also ruling, since in addition to providing for fundamental rights, it establishes state goals. That is, a plan, a direction for the state to guide itself. For example, the Article 3rd, which contains the objectives of the Brazilian Republic. The objectives of the Brazilian Republic, a plan, a goals. And our constitution is also rigid, because it's the one whose amendment procedure is more rigorous than that destined for other laws. Now, let's talk about regarding the structure of Brazilian Constitution of 1988. Let's talk about the structure of our constitution. Well, it can be divided into three parts. Our constitution can be divided into three parts. First, the preamble. Second, the permanent party. And last, a DCT, or in English, Transitional Constitution Provisions Act. Well, the preamble is a short letter. The preamble is a short letter, a paragraph of Constitution's intentions. Although present in all Brazilian constitutions, the preamble is not mandatory. The preamble is not mandatory, even being present in all Brazilian constitutions. The preamble is not mandatory. It's a tradition in Brazil, but it's not mandatory. Another thing very important, according to our Supreme Court, the Supreme Federal Brazilian Court, STF in Portuguese, the preamble is not a constitutional rule. The preamble is not a constitutional rule. Preamble is within the scope of politics. Preamble is connected to the idea of politics. It's worth highlighting then three consequences of the fact that the preamble is not a constitutional rule. There are consequences because preamble is not a constitutional rule. First, the preamble is not a mandatory repetition rule in Brazilian state's constitution. Second, the word, the word God in the preamble does not hurt the secularity of Brazilian state. And last, the preamble cannot be used as a parameter in the control of constitutionality. And finally, the permanent part. The permanent part contains fundamental principles, fundamental rights, state structure, and followings. This part may be a subject to constitutional reform. It's not immutable. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm available to any doubts.